All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We have great news. You guys have been asking for it all off season, myself included, for Pittsburgh to go out there and get a star or at least a decent wide receiver too, and that's exactly what they just did, picking up former Falcon Scotty Miller to a one-year deal. Now, obviously, I'm kidding. This is more of a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 move. I do think Scotty Miller will make the roster, but one quick comment, because we're about to get into an Arthur Smith just kind of rant here, because I really like Arthur Smith, by the way. Pittsburgh, what they're doing right now is they're just signing players to help teach the scheme to players relative to their position. So we've seen it, with guys like Van Jefferson, Cordell Patterson. They picked up a tight end. They're just picking up players at these certain skill positions to help teach this scheme to their other players. But once again, I do think Scotty Miller will make the roster. Now, Miller, 26, spent last season with the Falcons under now Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. He appeared in all 17 games. However, he caught 11 balls for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was also on the field for 24% of Atlanta's offensive snaps. 6th round pick back in 2019. He did win a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during 2020, but in his career, he only has 85 career catches, over 1,000 yards, barely over 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 67 games. One quick note on Pittsburgh Steelers news, not the wide receiver room, unfortunately. Cam Sutton reportedly has a really good possibility of returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Until we know more about the whole legal debacle going on there, I'll just leave it at that unless they actually do sign him. So before we get into Arthur Smith and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, if you guys enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL videos. We post a couple of Steelers videos every single week. I love and appreciate you guys as always. If you could try and get this video to 500 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So currently, Pittsburgh only has a couple of, wide receivers on their depth chart with new addition Roman Wilson. I love the addition of Roman Wilson, and you have George Pickens. But as it stands right now, George Pickens misses more than 2 football games this upcoming season. Pittsburgh is absolutely effed at that position. Now, one thing I do want to just say really quickly, Arthur Smith's head coaching tenure with the Atlanta Falcons was not good. And I think that's left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But at the end of the day, Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, you can draw your own conclusions, but he really didn't have too much to work with over in Atlanta at the quarterback spot. In his last season as the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, they went 11-5. And here's some crazy stats. Ryan Tannehill, Pro Bowl season, 65.5% completion percentage, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. And what's even crazier is even though he was throwing for only 239 yards per game, and actually Tennessee that season was the 3rd least pass attempt team in the NFL, they still put up 30.7 points per game. That was 4th in the NFL, and they were 2nd in rushing yards per game with 168. So the reason I'm mentioning this, because I saw a tweet here from Alex Kozora. Unless/until the Steelers add a true starting caliber X receiver, team's plan might be to truly mimic an Arthur Smith's offense, which is heavy 12 personnel / low 11 personnel, tight ends very involved in pass game, and rotate Roman Wilson / vets on outside opposite Pickens, who will dominate target wide receiver targets. Pat Freiermuth, very just bad season, underperformed last season. A lot had to do with Matt Canada. A lot had to do with Pittsburgh Steelers offense in general, but I expect at least a 500 receiving yard season from Pat Freiermuth. And we also have to keep in mind Darnell Washington severely underutilized in the passing game last season. The dude's a stud blocker, and Arthur Smith's going to love him. Once again, we revert back to the running back room, which is loaded with Najee Harris, who is just racking up 1,000-yard seasons, and whether you think this is the last year or not doesn't matter. He's still on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. And then you have dual threat, versatile playmaker in Jaylen Warren, which Arthur Smith's going to absolutely love. And of course, there's going to be some Justin Fields sprinkled in there if he doesn't win the starting job, which I assume is all Russell Wilson's to lose, like we've heard Mike Tomlin say time and time again. Some interesting notes on that Titans team, where Tannehill once again threw for 33 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions, was obviously Derrick Henry had a career season rushing for over 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns. But Point is, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren can easily combine for 2,000 rushing yards. But what was interesting was it was A.J. Brown's second season in the league. A.J. Brown missed a couple of games, but at the end of the day, he had 70 catches for over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Number 2 was Corey Davis with 984 yards, 65 catches, and 5 touchdowns. After that, you see a couple of tight ends in Jonnu Smith, but the third highest receiving note was 448. So in that Tennessee Titans offense, there was no sleeper wide receiver 3. Their wide receiver 2 was Corey Davis. And my point is, I fully believe Roman Wilson can put up stats along 700 to 1,000 yards in his rookie season. And if George Pickens is the rising star that we believe him to, and if Pat Freiermuth is this good, great, reliable receiving tight end that we know and believe he is and still is, I do think they'll be just fine not having this kind of wide receiver 2. The other depth chart guys that they have is Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin III, who's begging for a breakout, Scotty Miller, and Quez Watkins. I don't think Quez Watkins will make the roster, unfortunately. I do think Scotty Miller will be wide receiver 5. But just some quick notes on Roman Wilson, wide receiver out of Michigan, round 3, pick number 84. Here's what I heard from Jim Wexell, the founder of Steel City Insider and a Steelers beat reporter since 1995. In the third round, the Steelers grabbed 2 players who harkened back to the great Hines Ward. In wide receiver Roman Wilson, the Steelers got a starter with inside-outside capability, and a 4.3940 speed. So the dude's super fast. They also get a relentless team player and blocker and a player with a huge chip on his shoulder for being drafted so late, just like Ward. So this is a willing blocker, something he showed in Michigan's heavy run scheme, something he's definitely going to be asked in Arthur Smith's scheme with his roots in a strong ground running game. He's a little bit smaller, 5'11", 185 pounds, but Bleacher Report scout Derek Klassenen was high on him because of his ability to get open. He is among the best route runners in the class and is explosive. So, it does kind of appear, especially with Tyler Boyd going to the Tennessee Titans a day ago, it does kind of appear like Pittsburgh's not going to go out there and make a crazy move at wide receiver. One thing to keep in note is the post-June 1st deadline, or the post-June 1st thing, where you have guys like Tyler Lockett who are officially available to trade, and it makes sense for the teams they're on. I did see a trade proposal for Cortland Sutton. According to USA Today's Jarrett Bailey, the Steelers were one of the 2 clubs that reached out to Denver's brass to gauge Sutton's availability before and during the 2024 draft. And here's a proposed trade to Denver: a 2025 third-round pick and a 2025 sixth-round pick, and the Pittsburgh Steelers receive Cortland Sutton. I would do that every single day of the week, of every single day of the month, and every single day of the year. But at the end of the day, with new quarterback Bo Nix, I'm not really sure how Denver's feeling about trading away kind of their only proven wide receiver on the roster outside of Josh Reynolds, their acquisition from the Detroit Lions. So that's it from me. My point is, I do believe in Arthur Smith, and I do believe in his offense. And even without a solidified wide receiver 2, as long as George Pickens plays over 14 games and Roman Wilson is who we think he is, I do think they'll be just fine. But I obviously want them to go out there and get somebody. So let me know what you guys are thinking. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. Let me know your thoughts on the wide receiver room as it stands right now.